Well, Happy New Year to everyone and to you, Alex. We have now stepped into the new decade of the 2020s and the year 2020. This is the very first first video of the Hive Chat. It's not a podcast, but it is an update video that will basically just go on about what things are going to be happening in the future of this channel. New things coming, new year, everything. Main thing is we're not cancelling the channel or anything, even though if anyone's listening or not, we're not going to cancel it because there's things that are going to happen, things are changing. But we're going to continue it because I guess our main goal is when we started this small channel and this podcast is that it was just to enjoy ourselves and, somewhere to get our rants on. Me and Alex have. It's
mostly just an excuse to have a scheduled, chat.
But yeah, that's still the main goal, main aim of this podcast, to enjoy it. But the other thing is that, if there will be one day maybe an audience, then from then on, we'll also be able to hopefully get content that is enjoyable for both sides, the creators and the watchers and the viewers and stuff like that. But the overall aim is basically content enjoyability for all of us. And, well, I guess we'll get straight into it, to the plans for 2020. So, we've got a couple of things here. Shouldn't be too long, but we'll find out. Main thing is that over the past year, we've learned a bit about doing the podcast and stuff like that. It's been very enjoyable, especially with the talks we've had. But the main thing that's kept coming up here and there is basically been scheduling. More or less, it's not scheduling that's between me and Alex. We can actually do pretty well with the scheduling because, to be frank, we're not too super busy like the rest of our friends and stuff like that. But the main problem there is, if you can guess, is that, when we have some guest stars on, like you've seen, like Christian, Dylan, and Jack and stuff like that, there's some problems with basically trying to get people on at the right time, at the right moment. And more or less, it's not the problem that we still want them on 100%. It's just that if somebody, we try and do a recording date or whatever, problems arise when someone can't do it. And then we try and set a week to try and do it, but then some things happen. We can't prevent it. That's just the way of life. But the main thing is that there's sort of a domino effect with it all, where basically if we miss out on doing a recording session with somebody because they're busy or whatever, it just has a roll-on effect for all the other podcasts and not just the podcast, but just everything else we do, because including the guests and all that. So there is a bit of problem there. So I guess the main remedy to this is that we're still going to try our best to get guest stars on, and if possible, they can come on and can record. Will 100% people get on? However, if the time comes when we try and set a week or whatever, like this week, guys, we'll record a video, the podcast. If they can't do it when we set the time or a few days before, basically the thing is that it'll just be me and Alex, just doing our regular thing. So there may be less guest stars this year just because of that. But that being said, I don't want to feel rude or anything, but I feel like, me and us, we have a good enough time just talking about whatever. I hope you agree with that, Alex. Otherwise, it'd be a bit awkward.
Yes, I agree.
But besides that, so that's sort of the main thing when it comes to the scheduling with guest stars and stuff, which was sort of one of our original goals, was to try and get people on, but it turns out it's a lot harder than we expected. Next thing is content. Content is staying relatively the same. There's no major changes coming to it. We believe anyway the stuff we talk about, enjoy, is good enough for us, and we have a fun time talking about it. Random talks on whatever, like articles or just random topics in general. For now, we're going to keep the regular content, which is, if you know, is basically split into two different parts, where the first half of the podcast, of the Hive Chat podcast, is essentially sort of what I refer to as the free flow section, which is essentially just any random topic, something just to sort of talk on, from anything from just articles or some, genre things or whatever. Then the second part is the reviews from any type of medium, from games, books, TV shows, movies, you name it. So that will basically relatively stay the same. There's no big changes coming to that. The only change that may happen is more or less of a test as of the moment. The test is that what we're going to do for the next Hive Chat podcast, the regular series, episode 11, which who knows what we'll do for that exactly, but it will essentially be split into two podcasts. The aim there is to see how it goes if we split the free flow section and the review section into two different podcasts. The main aim for that is because sometimes, or for this specific one that might be coming up, is that the free flow section, the stuff we're going to talk about, is good to talk about with one guest star. And then the review itself is actually good to talk with a different guest star because they've watched the review or whatever. So the goal is that basically the next regular Hive Chat episode will be split into two different podcasts. We don't know if that will continue. It's more or less of a test. If it goes well, we may continue doing that. If it doesn't, or if there's just too many problems that arise, we will go back to the original plan. But overall, the main content that's being delivered will stay relatively the same because we believe anyway it is still good for us to enjoy and the people who come on, and if anyone listens, hopefully they enjoy it as well. The next big thing is basically coming back to scheduling, is talking about sort of actually getting podcast out. Our original aim was to get about a podcast every 2 weeks, so bi-weekly. Turns out that's a lot harder because primarily that was with guest stars. That's why it was much harder to try and get a podcast out like 2 times a month. Our main aim now is for 2020 is to basically get one podcast out a month. So that would be at least 12 podcasts this year of the regular series, that is. That's our goal. That sort of allows us to try and get guest stars on a lot more easier. Also gives us, a lot more time to sort of maybe think through what we want to talk about. But that being said, this is basically, we'll try and guarantee that there'll be one podcast per month. However, things happen. But that being said, who knows, there may be more podcasts coming out each month. For example, this month, if everything goes according to plan, there should be actually 3 podcasts coming out this month alone. And I'll get onto that in a bit. But understand that there'll be basically one podcast out that will be guaranteed per month. If there's any other additional ones that come out, then everything must be going really well. And hopefully, maybe that might happen and maybe able to get more people on or more people to watch or whatsoever. The other thing actually is talking about actually an audience and stuff like that. Again, the original intent of this was just for me and Alex and our mates to enjoy talking with each other, ranting about whatever. I thoroughly enjoy doing that, and I believe and I hope Alex still does. It's definitely just a nice time just for us to chat about whatever. The main thing is that as of the moment, there's no sort of, I guess, sharing of the podcast or whatsoever. I haven't really spent the time sharing it onto different platforms or doing sort of an awareness of it. That may change this year with, it's more or less of a secondary thing. It's not a primary thing for this year, but I'm going to try and get this podcast out there a little bit. If it sparks anyone's interest, then, hopefully they come enjoy the podcast, but it's not really the main goal of this year, but it will be basically, I guess, a side objective to try and basically share this out with more people and see if other people enjoy it because, it's fun. I've felt as much fun when there's a bit of an interaction between audiences and content creators just because there's a more of a dynamic, especially if it's a good one. Sadly, sometimes it doesn't all work, but especially when it's a good one where you sort of work together with the audience and in creating something that's both enjoyable for both parties and definitely enlightening in certain regards. Because look, we're just two guys who basically don't know anything really, and we're trying just to have fun on this platform of YouTube. But that's with an audience and that it may help us find more things out. And sort of on top of that is that we're also, as this podcast only comes out on YouTube, I have actually been trying to look into getting the podcast out on other platforms. So there's other ones, there's Apple Podcasts, there's Spotify, there's all the other ones as well. I'm going to look into trying to do some of those, seeing what the rulings are on those, and if possible, we'll try and get that out. Means that it'll be easier to access this podcast, especially with RSS and stuff like that. Will basically be accessible with everybody. That again will be more of a side objective with what the main goal is, basically just to get this content going, continuing, and enjoying it. But if we can, we'll try and share this more with other people on different platforms, and also trying to get this on different platforms, sort of like Spotify, Apple Music, or Apple Podcasts, and all the likes like that. But those is more or less, I guess, if you would like to say, sort of secondary things. The other things, in terms of last year, there was a bit of a change in certain things with the original intent of a lot of things. So me and Christian, we actually did the Game of Thrones miniseries podcast and the Mandalorian miniseries podcast, where we did reviews on it and speculations and theories and all the likes. And that sort of just came out. I didn't really expect that to happen. It was very enjoyable when we did it, especially because we got to talk about the, just reviewing on the episodes and that, and it's just a good time talking about them and understanding a lot more from a different perspective. That this year may not continue because more or less there aren't actually many big TV shows that I necessarily know that are coming out. I do know that the second series of The Mandalorian will be coming out, but it won't be coming out till the end of the year.
The only one I know about is, or at least if anything coming out soon, is Better Call Saul Season 5, which I'm going to be watching.
I have not watched.
But,
well, maybe if you want, maybe you can, if there's anyone to watch, maybe I might even watch it. If there's anyone you want to watch it with.
Hell yeah, I'll watch it with you.
We can definitely do a series on that, series of reviews. But the main thing is, I guess, as at the moment, there's no plans for any that come out. No major plans like I've sort of set up for The Mandalorian or Game of Thrones. So don't expect any of those coming out anytime soon. We're basically just going to go back to our roots with the original intent of just getting regular podcasts out. But that may change in due time. The final thing to talk about is essentially reiterating with the problems that we had last year, especially towards the end of the year. Actually, it turned out there's a lot more problems. There were big gaps throughout last year, which I feel really bad about that. We were trying to get podcasts out, but just because a lot of things are happening, it was sort of really hard to get things out. The main problem was in December anyway. There were just a lot of problems with a lot of people being busy, I myself being included in certain things, where we were basically unable to get the podcast that we wanted to complete, basically just due to conflicts with guest stars and myself as well. The two podcasts that were meant to come out last year in December were actually meant to be the Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker review podcast. That was actually meant to be split into two different podcasts. That one, which was going to be obviously after the movie came out, and then actually prior to that, we were actually aiming to do sort of a Star Wars retrospective. That didn't come out as to plan because basically a lot of things got in the way. And we've sort of reiterated it and sort of looked at it. And what we're going to do now is that we're going to do the Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker review. And then we're actually going to do, maybe in addition to that, it will be the Star Wars retrospective, mainly looking at the canon stuff, so all the movies, maybe looking a bit at TV shows here and there. But the main thing is just sort of our thoughts and feelings. It will actually be with 2 guest stars. That is the actual aim. But as I said at the start, things happen. Hopefully they'll be able to get 4 people on, me and Alex included. And it's basically just us talking about sort of how we've come to go in with Star Wars and sort of just at Star Wars in general, everything that's happened about it, the problems that arise, the things we've enjoyed about it, and all the likes of that. And more or less, I guess, sort of like now that Star Wars is more or less not phasing out, but the main stuff is sort of has been done with. And until we know any big things that come out, this is sort of a moment to reflect on it all and just sort of really think about, one, how big it's really been to us and just the wider audience in the world. That was the first podcast. That will hopefully come out sometime in January. I'm not going to say when, but sometime. The next podcast that was meant to come out is, if you probably know, is the Mandalorian one, where we were meant to do the final 2 episodes. the original aim was actually do one podcast per episode. Things happened, so we've for these two last episodes for The Mandalorian, me and Christian are going to do the final 2 episodes together. Actually, to be honest, I feel like it's better just because of the way both episodes work. They sort of work hand in hand a lot easier than the others. So me and him will do a talk on that, reviewing on it as per usual, and then also maybe doing a general series review on the whole Mandalorian and stuff like that, sort of wrapping everything up. That will also come out sometime in January. Again, I'm not going to say when, but main thing is that these 2 podcasts that were sadly missed out last year in December will hopefully come out sometime in January. The aim is to get those out. They're sort of a priority at the moment, more or less because they're on my mind, and we got plans for them and everything. So hopefully they will come to fruition, and we'll be able to get them out. And that's sort of the main problems as of the moment. The main thing here is that there's the content that will basically stay the same. Scheduling will change with one podcast a month guaranteed. Guest stars will be less unless we're lucky and people can actually come on. And the other thing is there's no big mini-series reviews that we're going to do anytime soon that have any big ones coming out. There may be sometime during the later of the year. And the last thing is a couple of podcasts that weren't to come out in December will come out in January, making 3 podcasts at least, hopefully, coming out in January. So it'll be a lot to do and get through. And the final thing is this is more or less just an extra thing is that we're going to try and share it a lot more with more platforms in terms of like Twitter, Reddit, all the likes of those social media platforms, and also actually getting it onto other platforms like Spotify, Apple podcasts, and all the other podcast platforms. Just to also spread it, and also just be able to sort of listen to it without having to have YouTube open. That's the one thing I hate, is just having YouTube open to listen to it, because you're not there to actually watch the video, you're there to listen to it. So that's sort of the main problem I know it's come up for me anyway when I listen to it. So hopefully I can get it to Spotify or some other platform, and then we'll be able to definitely be a lot more easier to access is the essential thing there. If there's anything else, Alex, for plans or anything, is there anything else you want to say in addition to all the things I've been saying?
Well, I've got one podcast plan that I also wanted to do at the end of last year, which we talked about. We talked about fantasy stuff. Yeah. And we didn't get to do it because, again, mine was kind of like pushed to the back because we wanted to do Star Wars first, and then we wanted to do a bunch of other stuff. So, but I'm still really keen to get that one out. I think that'll be one of the next ones out.
Yeah, so I think for the aim for that one is that as we sort of will try, is that will be the one where we split in between the review and the fantasy one into 2 different podcasts. That's more of a test, but that will more or less, that fantasy topic will be the sort of the free flow section where we do it with hopefully a guest star. But that will be the first episode anyway of the Hive Chat podcast that will be out this year, the main series that is. So that will definitely be coming out. That are the plans. So the next 3 podcasts have been planned out, and hopefully everything goes according to plan. We'll be able to get them all out, but they will definitely come out. Is that it? There's nothing else you wanted to add onto that, Alex?
I don't think so. This was just supposed to be like a quick update, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was only meant to be a quick update. And sort of, I guess now just move over to the last section. So, yeah, there may be more changes coming out in this year, in 2020, but as of the moment, plans that have been set out in stone here will be the major changes that will be happening. They're not, to be honest, they're not major things, but they're more or less helping us as content creators in trying to get the podcast out more efficiently and easier and the likes. But that being said, things will change throughout the year. Hopefully, some good things may come arise and we'll be able to get more podcasts out. But, who knows what will come of 2020. But that being said, I definitely think there'll be enjoyable things to talk about. Because, either way, I feel like I have a billion things to talk about any time of the day. So we'll be able to definitely get some more podcasts out no matter what. But the main thing here is that, so if anyone is listening, I just want to say thanks to whoever has listened, even if you are just a friend or whatever, even if you've listened for 5 minutes or 50 minutes. I hope you've had some joy in listening to these podcasts. Especially a big thanks to a lot of the guest stars who've come on, and especially spending the time being with us. Just, talking about whatever. It's been definitely a pleasure talking with them all. And it's enjoyable because in terms of everyone being busy and that, this is sort of a good time just to try and relax and just talk about things. And I think it's a really good way of just, letting off steam and that. So it's been definitely a joy talking with everyone else. And also, I guess, just a big thanks to Alex for, sticking on this podcast. Because, this podcast was just
so nice, Ariel.
Problem. And, this podcast was just one just for us to enjoy. And I feel like either way, I think it's done its job in what it was aiming to do. And I've definitely thoroughly enjoyed it and enjoy spending the time talking about on all these random topics. Because, I am a person who actually loves to just talk about whatever here and there. It's very fun talking about things and getting other people's perspective on things. It is definitely a fun thing to do.
Yeah, it is. It's good to catch up as well.
Yeah, it's good to catch up. So I believe that is it. Again, a big thanks to everyone who's been a part of this podcast in the past year. Been a very big help, especially in the guest stars and you, Alex, and the likes, and trying to get this all sorted. Doing YouTube it's not easy, but it's also not impossible. Though, that is a thing with life in general. I believe that is it, unless there's anything else you'd like to add, Alex?
No, I think that's it.
All right, well, I want to say a Happy New Year, actually, first. Happy New Year to everyone who's listening. Hopefully 2020 will be a good year for everybody as new things are to come, and also the new decade. But as per usual, we will leave with the famous Hive Chat goodbye phrases, I guess. I don't know what else we'd call them. So yeah, I guess I'll start.
Yeah, you're the one that always starts.
Do I? Shit. Hang on. Fuck, this happened last time. I think it happened last time. What the hell's the phrase?
I'll start then.
See you later, alligator. See you later, alligator.
In a while, crocodile.